r/ask Reddit, why did that teacher get fired from your school? He went hunting the day before, left his shotgun in the backseat of his car, forgot about it. Security guard saw it there during school and called the cops. It was legally okay, but he got fired anyway. Teacher didn't get fired, but we never saw him again. In about 1st grade, a bunch of the dads were sitting around on a Saturday, drinking beer in one of the backyards. Kids got to talking about the new gym teacher who liked to pick up the little girls and turn them upside down, especially if they were wearing dresses. He'd have his favorites help get the mats out of the storeroom, and sometimes it took a really long time. One of the girls there was the gym teacher's absolute favorite, and her dad got really quiet and then took her inside the house for about 20 minutes. Kids kept playing. Dad stopped drinking. He came out and said to the others, "Let's go." This was a small town on the Great Plains, and these men had known each other all their lives. They went. The story I heard later was that they went over to the gym teacher's place and scared the shit out of him. Told him to get in his car and start driving, and never come back. The guy left all his stuff and everything, and no one ever heard from him again. I was an adult before I realized what really happened. I was in 7th grade and our literature teacher showed us Romeo and Juliet, the Olivia Hussey version. There is brief, harmless nudity, but some parents freaked the duck out, claimed the guy was pushing pornography on us. Drama ensued, protests were initiated, and Mr. C was fired. We watched Clash of the Titans, the original in HS Latin, and there's a brief nude scene that shows the love interest as she walks out of the bath. My Latin teacher proceeded to go, "Oh man, I wasn't paying attention," and rewound the scene. He did this like 2 or 3 times. She taught German and went on the sophomore's field trip to the Holocaust Museum. While there, the class got to hear a Holocaust survivor tell their story. Teacher stood up at this point and proceeded to tell the survivor why the Holocaust was actually a hoax and never happened. Our teacher was out one day, and his class was being taught by a sub. It happened to be a day when the students were working on their computer art projects, so all the sub had to do was supervise the work. One student needed to save his work and was missing a disk. This was in the days of 3.5-inch floppies. He found one just laying around and asked the sub if he could use it. Sub agreed. Student plugged it into the computer. They found out it was the disk where the regular teacher was keeping his porn stash. The teacher was fired when he came back the next day. We had a study hall teacher that was super chill. Everyone loved her. She always let us listen to our iPods even though it was against school policy. One day these 2 dudes were busted by her doing a deal on some pot. These 2 had a record and would have been arrested and tried as adults since they were both 18. We were in our last year of school. Rather than report it, she decided to throw it away and not make a deal of it. Done and over. Well, turns out the school beach that no one liked saw the whole thing. Beach reported it, got the study hall teacher fired. The entire school went on strike and wore shirts to support getting her rehired. It didn't happen, but we ducking tried. Not a teacher, but a cop at our school was fired from being the school cop. He kept his actual police job for accepting sex from minors instead of giving them a MIP. Insane how he was able to keep his job. When I was in 8th grade, my science teacher was a man who was, for lack of a better term, an utter douche nozzle. He was fresh out of some graduate degree or another, and clearly believed himself to be the smartest, funniest, and best liked entity since George Carlin's run as Mr. Conductor. Worse still, a handful of students seemed to agree with that self-assessment, and the appreciative responses he'd receive only served to further inflate his ego. Now, lest you think that I simply didn't like this teacher, and as such, I'm treating him unfairly, let me assure you that while you're right, I didn't like him, he was also something of a psychopath. The man would frequently go to great lengths to ensure that students who didn't suck up to him were punished. There was one young woman, for example, who made the mistake of correcting the teacher during a lecture. When our next test rolled around, the girl discovered that she'd received a failing grade, despite the fact that she'd offered nearly identical answers as someone who had passed. Perhaps the most cruel treatment I saw from the fellow, though, came in the aftermath of that mistreatment. The same girl, having found that she'd flunked her test, approached the teacher. She spoke to him in a quiet, polite voice, and although I couldn't make out what was being said, it seemed like she was asking to have her grade changed. The teacher's face adopted a twisted, sardonic smile, and he responded loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Well, I guess you don't know everything, do you?" The young woman replied with hurried whispers, even when seen from behind. It was clear that she was losing her composure. "I guess you should have studied harder. Maybe you'll learn you're not always right." More whispers followed, though the girl's words became almost audible. She said something about needing a passing grade, and asked how her score could have been so much different from someone who'd offered similar answers. In response, the teacher just laughed. The girl walked back to her desk, tears clearly visible in her eyes, and the teacher kept laughing. Fortunately, there's a happy ending to all of this. See, that teacher offered unfair treatment to a few too many students, myself included, and we managed to, independently, amass a fair amount of evidence against him. I'll never know for sure if our investigations were the deciding factor in this, but I do know that he didn't return to that school the following year. Too long didn't read. My 8th grade science teacher liked to stroke his ego with the tears of young women. It was a math teacher in my high school. She was having an affair with one of the health teachers. All the students knew but faculty did not until one night. Apparently she and the health teacher decided to meet at our local Walmart. They used his car to go up on the train tracks and parked to start messing around. A train came and hit the vehicle. That's how everything came out and our small town was shaken up from the reveals. He called a girl a horse. She was 13. He left so fast that he didn't clear out his desk. And that's how I have a key to the school. All about those silver linings. My freshman year religion teacher was fired because his son failed a school drug test and had gotten divorced. Dude was an amazing teacher, especially when talking about art history. It's sad that your teacher fired for something his kid did. Kidnapped a kid and drove him to another state. Was arrested after police tracked him down and found them in a motel room. His name was Mr. Love. We had a one-armed teacher in junior high, 8th 9th grade. I think he taught shop. Anyway, he was on the elderly side, mid to late 50s early 60s. One day in between class this prick jumps on his back and starts screaming and flailing around. I guess the kid thought it was funny. Well, the teacher didn't. He threw the kid off his back and pinned him against the lockers with his only arm until some other teachers came over. Well, he was fired for assaulting a student. Needless to say, that kid was a pariah for the rest of the time at that school. History teacher. He used to wear a cape to class. We all called him Batman. He did so much weird shit, like eating chalk, jumping on empty boxes and standing on his desk. I think he was finally fired for walking around on top of the students' desks. We were in a big U formation, and kicking a boy in the chest for breathing too loud. Banged a student. Sold weed to students. Liked crack. The undesirables. The ones who were loners and didn't assimilate into middle school well, me included, were sent off to a weekend camping trip to learn about teamwork, friendship, etc. While we were there, the ESL teacher walked around nude with his gigantic schlong at half-mast. Needless to say, come Monday he was walked off school property when word got out. When I was in grade 10 I had this amazing teacher. He would let us do anything. My school had a strict no eating policy, but he didn't give a shit, so we would eat like candy and stuff. One day I was sat down in the first class of the morning and I missed breakfast, so I decided to bring one of those small packs of Frosted Flakes, a bowl and some milk, cause I know I had him first class. Middle of class, I'm sat down eat and the principal knocks on the door and the teacher opens the door and the principal sees me eating and she flips at me. This amazing teacher decides to defend me and starting saying, oh, it's his class and mind your own business and all that shit. They go in the hall and shut the door. We go silent in class and hear my teacher shout, I hope you get ducking throat cancer, you stupid bitch. He returns to the classroom right after and looks at the room full of 15-year-olds and says, "Beach gone crazy." That was a Friday. He didn't come back Monday or Tuesday or ever. Another teacher told us he moved to Iraq to teach at a college there the week after because the school district fired him. I'm honestly not sure if I was the one that got him fired for eating cereal in class, but he was honestly my favorite teacher ever. My cousin's teacher was forced to stop teaching religious studies because she told the class that when the rapture came and all life was wiped out, she wanted to be having intercourse with her husband on the altar of a Catholic church. Well, that just sounds badass. Chemistry teacher got into a heated argument with the principal over funding cuts. It escalated to the point where the teacher went to his car, pulled out the infant car seat in the back, thankfully empty, and used it to smash the principal's car windows. I had a chemistry teacher that called me out in the middle of class for putting a hex on his family. This guy literally blamed me for his kids getting sick and having to go to the hospital. He did this in front of the entire class. I told the assistant principal, and the next semester he was fired. A girl accused him of molesting her, and by the time she admitted she was lying, it was too late. That's pretty ducked. Back in high school, over 10 years ago, had 2 teachers get fired while I was there. One was a Spanish teacher. She was okay for a later 30s chick. She got caught ducking 2 male students at once. Had another female teacher that was in her mid-20s. She was pretty good looking. She was one of the cheerleader coaches. Apparently she was having after school specials with many of the cheerleaders and other girls who weren't on the team. Everyone then realized why not a single guy ever got anywhere with her. A special ed teacher would take about 5 of her kids out of class at random times every week. It's not out of the ordinary as some of them need medication every so often. However, the school eventually noticed that on her public Facebook page she was posting pictures of those students. They were in her car with her, smoking joints, ripping bongs, and doing dabs. To boot, they were all time-stamped during school hours. She got fired very quickly. None of the students ever got in trouble though. I had a French teacher in high school who was insane and would bang her 6-inch heels on desks all the time. She got fired when she was accused of throwing her heel at a student. Some students protested against the firing, but I hated her, so I was happy to see her go. High school English teacher showed up to class drunk and started talking about her boobs and how men like them. Asked the male students if they wanted to touch them or something to that effect. When administrators found out, they urged her to resign instead of fighting and bringing attention to it. She agreed. History teacher also coached a wrestling team. Apparently at a party, some of the wrestlers shoved a broomstick up another, smaller / geekier / etc. wrestler's ass. Teacher / coach heard about it and didn't do anything. Parents found out, sued, all over the news, got fired and moved out of state. My social studies got fired for having sex with the lunch lady in the parking lot. She looked exactly like lunch ladies are pictured in movies too. 8th grade history teacher was discovered to be having an affair with one of his former students. The affair started when she was 14 and wasn't discovered until she was 18. Somehow or another he was asked if he thought it was appropriate to have this relationship. He responded something to the effect of, "If this were biblical times I would have married her by now." One of the coaches hit a band member with the side of their bus. This was just after the football team lost and the coach yelled for everyone to shut up while he just continued driving. When they arrived back at the school, the coach told all the players to not tell anyone what had just happened. Had a physics teacher who locked 3 girls in his classroom with him and wouldn't let them leave. I also had a temp science teacher who made a homemade firework and set it off in the classroom, nearly burning half the school down. My head of year in year 10, who also taught PE, was banned from supervising girls during trampoline lessons because he would put them on report if they wore shorts under their gym skirts, or didn't wear their gym skirts. An English teacher, a music teacher, and a French teacher left and didn't return after having nervous breakdowns. Second worst school in Britain, 1997. That teacher had dirty pictures on his computer, one of which was another teacher. True story. This sort of thing is actually a very real problem with young, single, newly qualified teachers that use social media and dating sites. Some of my friends are teachers and have active Facebook lives. Dread to think what would happen if their students found that. Never mind something like Tinder. Dating sites are full of young teachers, because it's so hard for teachers to meet people, and the photos are all of big nights out or certain outfits and poses. If a load of teenage boys found their 20-something female teacher on there, oh boy. He asked the Sikh, Not even Muslim, student of our class if he was going to plant a bomb when the student asked to go to the toilet. This was after 9/11. Even though I live in the UK,